For being here today. I'm Josh Kofflin, class of 2015, city councilman of Milan. I'll go through local leadership in action. So a little bit about me, my Olivet College career. Student government vice president, was leading the sustainability charge back in 2013, 2014. I was a resident advisor, played football, was a part of engineering club in Earthbound, amongst a couple other groups. The sustainability side, we were able to work with I was able to be a part of the President's Leadership Institute, and we were able to do retrofit water stations in the first main center of Mott, and we were able to use retrofit bottles there. And then we did plug in LED lights and motion sensor lights at Shippard Hall for some of the laundry rooms, as well as some of the hangout spaces in Shippard Hall. So we were trying to decrease electricity there. Background in environmental science. Once again, a part of Milan City Council, our local leadership. My assignments, our budget cycle is July 1st to July 1st every year. My assignments with the Zoning Board of Appeals, working with the River Raisin Watershed Council, Friends of the Sweden River, and working on the Monroe non-motorized community. SEMCOG is a league of governments in the Southeast region. So it goes from Washtenaw County to St. Clair County. I've been able to join their economic development group, their green committee, and their priority action climate plan. So their PCAP, and then we're going to do a long range plan for the Southeast region to hopefully prevent flooding and other disaster forms, and also try to create money through the EPA to get grants in for our region. So once again, Olivet College was a game changer for me when I decided to play football there in 2010. Through that, my nonprofit involvement became in through after college. I've wanted to do more and more volunteerism. So with that, I was a part of Jackson's Young Professionals and the Bright Walls. I was in the volunteer corps there. Ended up getting recruited to the Knights of Columbus. Moving my own forward, we ended up joining that. Led a couple different projects in solar. Ended up doing Recycle Days, which was inspired by Olivet College. So Dr. Leah Knapp, we did a household and e-waste shred day at Olivet College. Ended up redoing that and retooling it, and ended up recycling over about, we're luckily on like 10 tons of recycled plans there. Worked on a big Toll and Square project, which we had the MDC money going through our nonprofit, and now we got a huge new Toll and Square in downtown Milan. We got bike pumps and fixed stations in Nature and Wilson Park in Milan. So I want you guys to come and experience Milan. This is great. Ended up joining the Sons of the Legion, Milan Area Historical Society, and now we're on the second. Now we're launching MCATs again in Milan. So, which is Citizens Against Toxic Substances, which we've been talking about in our region with Reggie Miller in our area. So this is going through the current issues. The reason why local government, you got to campaign for it, do 4 years. I want to contribute back to my city, which goes back to the Olivet College Compact. I enjoy working with everybody. There's no issue. We can, have a beer, a cup of coffee, discuss the issues. Milan's such an opportunity here that it is Monroe and Washtenaw based, so we got to work with that and all the townships. We are a small town, and you always want to work for a better group. Once again, the SEMCOG plan, we did this plan in 6 months, had at least 5 to 6 focus groups. Shareholders in the region were there. We attacked it, so it's our priority action. We're working on our long-term year. So this is one of my proud moments as an elected official. Leadership, ZBA, you can be chair of programs. I was able to co-chair Recycle Days and Scrap Tires and Fix It Station. So this does matter. This is great. Be involved. We worked with Debbie Dingle. We ended up getting some federal money to fix up our senior center and our community center. So that money, we are being used in trying to create changes for the world. And there's a photo of the senior center officials and a bunch of my colleagues, the mayor, Ed Kohler, and Debbie Dingle, and Shannon Beeman as well. So once again, we do promote Down syndrome awareness. We did a Rock the Socks campaign this March the last 2 years. So we always have our community is always driven, and that's where Olivet College kind of led me there too for this. And then we were able to get grant funding through the state of Michigan with Reggie and Jeff Irwin. to get 3.5 million into our wastewater treatment plant. So it was our city council working together to get this money and get it promoted. So once again, challenges for city councils. We budget yearly, work with county and funding. We always try to get TAP funding, federal funding. We always got to go for RFPs. So city council, we work with either sides of the aisles and try to get RFPs for the projects we want to. So that's state and federal, but we are working with our officials a lot more in the last 3 years. So I have been a part of a game-changing council. Once again, other challenges, trying to get master plans, DDAs, city ordinances, working with landlords. Civility can be good or bad at sometimes for our Facebook groups. Once again, the positives though, it's the best job in the world. You're always learning, communicating with other communities, gathering ideas. I enjoy working with the nonprofits in our community, and also our events in the city are always great. Once again, if you want to become, this is kind of my upsell. If you want to be involved and become a city politician or run, get involved with the Michigan Municipal League, SEMCOG, Eagle. There's always networking, leadership books. I'm currently reading Tools for Titans, and I always read a Simon, and 5 Dysfunctions of a Team is always good. If I can do any book recommendations, since we are a leadership group, trust the process, keep on going. I want to say believe in you, trust your policies. There are tough days at the office, but still always work through it. Dream big. University compact's always been golden for my public service. So how I ran was all based on the Olivet College Compact, and that's how I want to lead. So I'm looking at our college compact as our center, even though I didn't truly understand it my freshman year, but now as an adult, I'm like, oh, this is my North Star for leadership. So, and I'll let KP take over. Was that 10 minutes?
Thank you, Josh. Yeah, I don't know how to do that. There we go. This is my PowerPoint here. Let's go, let's fight, let's win. My name's Kathy Pelleran-Mahoney, and my friends call me KP, and so do my family. So I hope you will too. I just want to share that I appreciate this colloquium because it is just so timely with the elections as a backdrop also, and looking at what Josh's pathway is. My pathway has been very similar to his. My experience has been shaped by family, faith, Girl Scouts, and the Vietnam War. And we also had the assassination of John F. Kennedy Jr., Martin Luther King and Jr., and also John F. Kennedy and Martin Luther King Jr. and Bobby Kennedy during my lifetime early on, that affected what I would believe helped to shape my trajectory. I had 2 questions that I at one point had asked my dad and my parents. My parents didn't want me to get involved in working for elected officials, and I said, you know, you watch your taxes, you need somebody in there to watch your taxes. If you believe they're all liars, cheats, and thieves and crooks, you know, you brought me up right, and I'm there to be someone who looks at your tax dollar and matches it with your priorities. So they quite well understood that. And then at another point, I said to my dad, who didn't seem to have the same emphasis on women making a good career and having a good salary and benefits as it was for men. And I said to him, I said, Dad, don't you want the same for your daughters as you do for your sons? And it changed him. It changed him. So I was thrilled to hear the history of Olivet, and thinking that they were the first college to offer degree programs to blacks and women. So I'm all in for you guys here. Social justice is my benchmark with the backdrop of the context that I just gave you. I had a class in college that we learned about organizing from Saul Alinsky. It wasn't until I worked with the Midwest Academy folks when I was the state director of Arizona for a Arizona Citizen Action, that I found out that Heather Booth had actually sued her employer and won because of discrimination on the job. And she took the money from her lawsuit and she formed the Midwest Academy in Chicago. I later was able to work with Steve Max, Kim Bobo, and Jackie Kendall, who wrote the book Organizing for Social Change. And it was first published in 1991. Organizing for Social Change is a wonderful primer for someone who hasn't collected all this stuff, and you're involved in issues and trying to make things work and make things happen, and don't know the first step to take and which direction to go in. This Organizing for Social Change is, and it was, and it is still today, one of the best tools that I have ever seen for organizing for social change. So again, it's Organizing for Social Change, published by the Midwest Academy, and I hope that you'll get a copy of it. Next slide, please, Kelly. Kelly mentioned that I'm running for state office, and what I've done is I've taken my experience now and said democracy is on the line. And I felt so compelled to run for office because of 6 basic reasons. They have names, they're personal to me, they're my grandchildren. Allie, Jack, Kylie, Connor, Cooper, and Chloe. And when we look at what is happening in our country today, I said, we have to be involved. Our priorities are on the line. The democratic tenets that we have known are under siege. The rule of law, our public institutions, public education, our access to healthcare, those are all things that are important to me. And so that's why I'm running for office, and I have a website. And one of the things that I did on my website was I've got 5 decades of experience in this arena, and I wrote it down. So I'm not going to belabor anybody with what my experience level is, but my website is Pelleran-Mahoney.com, and I offer you a shot at looking at it at any time. My district is going up the West Shore of Michigan, and it encompasses most parts of 4 counties: Muskegon, Oceana, Mason, and Manistee counties. Next slide, please. And I've been a longtime advocate and servant of the people, and that is my context of my life. I grew up in a faith-based family. It was my parents who led us, and we went to the public schools, went to church, and we had a small business. So we worked together, and it was about community. So as a Girl Scout, I knew what it was to help to serve people and serve my country and God, and that is what has been my driving force all of my life. I went to school in the Upper Peninsula and was a leader in school, and worked as a resident advisor and head resident advisor. And actually, Josh, I worked with Mitch Irwin, who was Jeff Irwin's father, and I've known Jeff Irwin, the senator you worked with on that one project, all of his life, and so it's been a pleasure to do that. But I got involved in college also because of the Vietnam War and looking at the PBB, the environmental issues, PBB being polybrominated biphenyl, that was a byproduct of Velsico Chemical Company. They had it was a Firemaster, and they inadvertently packaged it into Nutramaster bags and shipped it around the state throughout the Farm Bureau distribution service. And so we all have PBB in our systems in Michigan. But that was one of the studies that I first had done. And, I look at it today and thinking back then that it was a way to shine light on the subject and say, we have to deal with these issues of environmental protection. Afterwards, I was a counselor, and then I went to work for then State Senator Mitch Irwin in Lansing. We got Mitch elected to the state Senate, and a guy named G.T. Long and myself and folks came down from the Upper Peninsula, and folks in Lansing said, "What is it with you people from the Upper Peninsula? Y'all go by initials?" So, and that's really what we were there for, is to get the job done. And that's what we did. My boss was a superhero. Mitch had 26 bills passed into law. And when you think about what you can do when you are in the position to do it, when you're driving around the state and you see loads that are covered now so that debris is not falling off the trucks, that was one of the pieces of legislation that Mitch Irwin passed. When you go into a hair salon and you're allowed to buy boutique items, that is one of the pieces of legislation that Mitch Irwin passed. And I worked on that piece of legislation. So we know when we have problems and how to get answers to them. I'm very solution based. And I found out quickly that a good way to get answers is, one, elect the right people to office. Two, put them into leadership positions, because leaders are the ones who actually make the agenda. They set the agenda. And then three, get your priorities passed. The other thing is, in order to pass your priorities, it has to be through research and good, strong, supported work. It's not just necessarily the old boys school anymore. And I found that working bipartisan, working across the aisle, was something that got the work done. So I worked with the masters. I worked with Mitch Irwin. I worked with Senator Carl Levin, U.S. Senator Carl Levin, for 6 years. And I ran, at one point, close to 40% of the state for the senator. We worked on all of the projects that one could imagine to secure program funding for housing solutions for seniors, to secure health care and chiropractic services for retired and active military, to secure the infrastructure development that we have today, to secure the funding for a strong defense, that we could defend ourselves as a country. That's what Carl Levin did. And also to make sure that we weren't paying for excessive prices on widgets when the description made it seem like it was worth $1,000, but in reality, it was only worth $1. So those are things that Carl Levin did, and I was proud to be on his staff. Another thing that he did is he took on agriculture as an issue, and I was equally blessed to be his ag policy staff person for the state of Michigan. And so I dealt with a lot of agriculture issues, and one of the proudest days in my life was when Carl received the Farm Bureau endorsement when he was first running for re-election. Lastly, I worked for a U.S. Congresswoman, Karen English from Arizona, and that was a pleasure to be on the Hill, and I was her press secretary. So got an opportunity to work on good issues, judicial issues, as well as be her press secretary. And then as a college trustee for 7 years, I was elected to the Lansing Community College Board of Trustees. So I have worked on the inside of government, and then I took what I knew from the inside and worked it on the outside through nonprofit organizations and working to educate lawmakers on the local, state, and federal levels of government. And that is what I wanted to share with my next slide, is how I did that and why and how to be involved in public policy. We know that public policy many times is what can give us what we want. We know that it is working with elected officials in a bipartisan approach, doing our homework and presenting it to them, and then sharing with them how this will make a real difference in people's lives. So several things that in looking at a strategy that I've always been a proponent of is picking goals and objectives that are winnable, measurable, and will make a real difference in people's lives. That is going to get us something, get us from point A to point Z, and point Z being in the winner's circle. If we have goals that are too broad and too difficult, take those goals and ratchet them down. See what is winnable at the time and what you can build upon. And that's what I would suggest to people. Having a good, solid plan of attack is important. Along with that is having a good budget. Next slide, please. Midwest Academy strategy chart. This is how you do it. And a lot of times folks will say, you'll be in a room and you'll have butcher blocks, and put your butcher blocks up on the wall and folks write their ideas in it. This is how it's done. It's a really nice chart to use, and you can use this and section it off into butcher block subgroups and come up with goals and objectives, what your organizational considerations are, what are your tools, what do you have as access, do you have an office, do you have a lawyer who can assist you legally, do you have a copy machine, do you have a way to get to volunteers, how do you exercise those, who are your constituents and allies and opponents? Those will tell you who your volunteers are and also who your opponents are. So your targets and tactics, this is something that I've done all of my life. And I was thrilled when I went through the Midwest Academy training. Again, they're out of Chicago, that I had a tool like this that gave me rhyme to reason. And that's why I felt it was important. I wanted to share it with you. Next slide, please. This is a budget that I do on everything that I've done. And I first developed this budget when I was working for the Girl Scout Council in Arizona, because I had to help them to learn how to budget and to put on a program and how to pay for it. And so this is something that is a real helpful tool. And I first developed it with the Girl Scouts. I've since used it in everything that I've done. I continue to use it today. I am completely awestruck at the fact that so many folks don't use a budget. And so this is a simple tool, and I manage to give it to them every time. Next slide, please. And this is an event planning template. These are tools that help when you're putting on events, whether it is a fundraiser, whether it's a press conference, whether it is running for public office. These are things that are wonderful tools. So again, I just wanted to share those with you. Kelly, if you'll run through the slides on this, that would be great, so that folks know what is available. And I hope that you do use these as tools for your own efforts. It again is something that has been part of what I have used all of my adult life, and whether it is to affect change in how we get people to have pre-K for all, how we get people to have access to health care, how we get a housing development that's put up. Some of you go to Lansing, and you might go to the Lansing Center there in Lansing, Michigan, and you might stay at the hotel that's adjoined by that skywalk. That hotel was one of the last urban development action grants in the country. And that is a project that I put together with when I was on Carl Levin's staff, with local developers and folks from the city of Lansing. And it was a wonderful project. And Carl was able to help fish it out of the toilet when it was being ready to be flushed down the toilet from HUD, because the local developers in the city were not complying. So as a staff person, that's the kind of stuff that I worked on. And it was a wonderful project that today, I hope that many of you, when you think about this TED Talk here, or the Olivet Talk, that you'll remember and recall that, oh, that's one of the projects that Carl Levin helped to get past the finish line. So lots of projects, lots of work that I've done over the years, and helped to get access to a lot of programs and social justice programs for many people through the work that we have done, both in the nonprofit sector and while on staff of elected officials. And with that, I'll open it up to questions.
KP, we had one question in the Q&A asking about the slide deck, and I want to let everyone know that I will create a folder of all of the slide decks from the colloquium and send the link out to all participants so that you can grab the ones that are most valuable to you. And I'm looking to see if we have any other questions right now. I do have a question, but first I want to say thank you to both of you for not just taking an 8-to-5 day job and clocking in and clocking out. You are doing the work, you're doing the 24/7 work, serving the people. And no, I know growing up with a dad who was a city councilman for years and a township trustee, that the phone rings 24/7 and you've got to be ready to answer it. Or the next time it's time to vote for someone, it's not going to be, you're not going to be the one that is picked. So thank you for doing that for communities and for doing that for the humans that you live with in the areas that you live. A question that I have is, you have to work really hard to build relationships to get support for the election, to get chosen as the person to represent a particular community. And so you've got lots of people who are on your side. At the same time, there are probably quite a few people in any election that are not on the candidate's side, and you probably have to deal with them. What's it like to deal with the people who are not on your side, and what are some strategies that you can suggest to help people feel the things that maybe are unpleasant?
I guess I'll go first, since I'm in the middle of a campaign and experiencing it firsthand. I'm not there to serve a political party, and I'm in a partisan post, and so we have to be elected by the on a partisan ballot. And some folks are just one or the other. And I said, I've never asked anyone to take a political litmus test before I've offered service. And as staff, my bosses were always very emphatic about that as well. We help people, and I'm a solution-based person and servant leader, and that has always been my benchmark. So I said, when I'm elected, whether you vote for me or not, my door is open to you, and I will serve you.
Awesome. Thank you, KP. Josh, thoughts?
Yeah, I'll say working on people like that are against you. It's on a campaign side, it's always like you try to outdoor knock them in the polite way and outwork them. But once again, when you're serving for Milan, it's pro Milan. It's nonpartisan based. So like we're here to work for Milan, and I kind of deal with people that are against me. I use it as a motivator. So it's more internal motivation as a leadership thing. Okay, because my goal is to kind of prove them wrong and try to figure out solutions as well. So I guess that's the best way I can flip it positively. But it's been a learning in the last 3 years, and getting the angry emails is always fun, and trying to figure out solutions to help the resident or nonprofit group out is always there. So I try to figure out work a way around it and try to build a friendship. I know everybody's human, so yeah.
I think I agree too. I mean, it's important not to turn people off, because you want to keep the lines of communication open so that you can continue to negotiate. If you turn them off, they're off forever. And so I'm not going to hate on anybody, and even if they want me to, I'm not going to do it. I'm not even hating on my opponent. I said he's a very nice man. I just believe that his policy priorities and mine are different, and he votes incorrectly.
Mm-hmm. And I would say Milan's such a small town. We're about 16,000 people, so everybody knows everybody, and it's a little bit harder to get away with stuff. So, and yeah, so yeah, so similar to small town Olivet. So.
Any other questions? Well, Josh, I'm real proud of you.
Oh, thank you, KP. I'm proud of you too.
Yeah. I know the work you're doing, and you just, as an old basketball player, my rule is as long as the clock is ticking, I go to goal.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Amen.
I apologize. They're cutting down trees. They're cutting down trees around the University of Olivet, and all of our lights are flickering, and internet things are happening. I'm glad that everyone was able to stay in, and I wasn't able to hear the rest of your answer, and I'm sure it was very insightful. Let's see.
Oh, it was, Kelly. It was full of insight. Yeah.
Let's see. Any other questions? I don't see any other questions. I don't see any other questions from our gallery. And so I would like to thank you so much, both of you, for taking the time to join us in a very busy season, doing the very busy work that you all are doing. I would like to encourage everyone who is in the meeting right now, if you have questions for KP and Josh, go to our leadership learning community. I put the URL in our chat, and we have a specific discussion forum for their session. And ask the questions that you'd like to ask. If you would like to connect with them and have a longer conversation, I'm sure they'd be happy to do that. So I really want to thank both of you for being awesome resources for public service, for the political, for understanding politics and how to break in. And okay, so Josh is going to provide us with his PowerPoint. I just saw that note. So thank you for doing what you do and for helping us to learn how to be courageous leaders as well in our communities. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Corey.
You're welcome.
Thanks, KP. Thanks, Josh. Take care. And participants, we will be back in 10 minutes for our next session. So tune in then.